been a very positive McGrath Cup, Haulie, for Cork. 3 wins from 3 games and a first piece of silverware for the Cork senior footballers since 2018. So have you been pleased with what you've seen from Cork in the McGrath Cup?
I definitely have. Even from the off against Kerry, you could see that there was a different type of steel to the team. They obviously had a very good preseason. They're definitely a bigger, stronger, faster outfit than they were last year. I suppose along with that, some of the fellas who were injured last year, important players like Sean Meehan and Dan Lomani didn't commit last year. You know, they're central players now and they're playing very well at full back and centre back. And along with that, then you have the likes of Brian O'Driscoll and Dean and Tom Clancy, all these boys who had huge experience and physicality to the team coming back in. And look, then you have the likes of Corbett and Chris Jones who are showing form and playing well and look like they're going to fit in and look like they're up to the level. So look, it all seems very positive and they seem to be showing very good attitude.
Diarmuid, after the Kerry game, when we were talking to John Cleary, he mentioned the word momentum and he wanted Cork to build momentum this season. So now we're after 3 wins, beat Kerry, beat Clare and beat Limerick. So do Cork have momentum now heading into that league opener against Meath on Sunday?
Yeah, I think John couldn't have asked for a better run-in, to be honest. You know, I suppose every team, you know, when they go into these pre-season competitions, they're all looking for something different out of it. For Cork, as John said, it was momentum was their number 1 priority because they made a certain amount of progress last year, and it was important to keep building on that. So, you know, that they're improving each time they go out. And, you know, they definitely were, as Haulie said, they'd look stronger. They look very organised. They look like they're working hard. And, you know, he's bound to be very happy, you know, because they definitely had a lot of momentum for sure, yeah.
Haulie, I'm going to be David's advocate here and say it's only the McGrath Cup.
It is only the McGrath Cup, but look, you know, this new management from John Cleary and co, they needed to get off the ground running. You know, you saw what happened with Kerry last year. Jack O'Connor put out his, I'd say 11 or 12 of his team that started in the All-Ireland final for the McGrath Cup in the entire league. He was only looking for 2 or 3. I'd say Cork are nearly taking that as a template. You know, the main players are there all the time. And, you know, it's hugely positive, you know, winning the McGrath Cup for the first time since 2018, especially going into 3 very tough league games, what would have been Division 1 teams in the past. You know, we really know where Cork are post the Dublin game. You know, that will give us an idea of where we're going this year.
Even though it's so early in the year, like I said, it's just the McGrath Cup, for want of a better phrase, but already there seems to be a settled feel to this Cork squad. Like, touch wood, the injury list has definitely subsided. Like it was cruel last year. It wasn't even funny how many Cork fellas were on the sideline, but it looks far more settled now. I think there were 17 or 18 players who played in the 3 McGrath Cup games. That's going to help Cork too this year. Like, there's a settled team there. John Cleary has his management team in. Fellas are a year older, a year wiser. So you'd be hoping that Cork can kick on from the progress that they showed in the latter half of last season.
Definitely, and like Haulie listed a good few players there that have either come back or are new to the panel as well. And like all of a sudden, like you've depth in your squad, so you know you can afford 3 or 4 injuries. And I think we got some injuries last year, and like you could clearly see the squad was lacking depth, and it showed then when it came to crunch games. But definitely, like, you know, we'll say even the 15 that started against Limerick the last day, you had a number of players there that you could add to it, such as, you know, Carl O'Mahony, Corbett. You know, there's several players that will definitely add to it, you know. So from John's point of view, I'm sure like he's going to be very, very happy at this stage of the year. And as you said, like it does come with a caveat, I suppose, because teams are at different stages of their fitness levels and all that. Cork definitely look like they're at a reasonably good level already, but it was important for them to come out of the traps kind of good and strong, because as you said at the start, momentum is massively important to this Cork team. You know, they've had so many setbacks over the years and so many false dawns. When you think they're making progress, they suddenly go backwards. So, you know, their temperament is probably fragile from taking years of beatings and things like that. So like, you can't underestimate momentum. And as you said, your question at the outset, like a big panel is definitely going to help that, because they can afford now a couple of injuries, you know, and it won't have the effect on them that it might have had in other years.
Just on that for a second, Diarmuid, and you just mentioned it there, that I suppose the mentality of this squad could have been fragile over the last couple of years. After the game against Limerick on Friday night in Mallow, John Cleary said this Cork team needed a couple of wins together. And that's almost to exactly the point that you said there, for them to get that feel of winning games, winning back-to-back games, winning, I think a Cork team winning 3 games in a row for the first time in a couple of years. So like that's all important for this team because it is very much a new group still.
It is, yeah, and like they look like a team who are buying into everything that John is saying because on the field they look, they're very workmanlike. They work incredibly hard from the forwards coming back immediately to then bursting out of defence and transitioning really, really quickly. So they're a team playing with a purpose now. Definitely. So any kind of a couple of wins at all are going to add to that massively because when you go back training on a Monday or Tuesday night after a weekend game. There's going to be a step in the spring of everyone, or spring in the step of everyone, and like it's no cliche that winning is a habit, and it certainly is. Like, and this team in particular needed that because they haven't had that run with, you could probably say 6 or 7 years now at this stage, so it's massivly important to them.
I want to ask you, Haulie, about 2 of the players that have come back onto the Cork panel this year because you worked with the Carbery senior footballers last year, so you got to see Ty McCorrick's, Brian O'Driscoll and Bantry Blues, Rory Dean up close and personal in Carbery colours last year. So what can they bring to the Cork team this year?
Well, I think looking at them now, they both had unfinished business on their minds when they were playing with Carbery because you couldn't fault their performances in any one of the games against Carbery last year, and they had further steps, let's say, in their minds, or they were in the hope of further steps. Rory Dean was probably thinking that maybe his chance was gone. Bantry got relegated. He came in with Carbery, played very, very well, was very, very committed. Same with Brian O'Driscoll, still only, 28, I think, this year. Probably felt, the Carbery thing was his chance to put himself on the platform, and he did that. He finished up with 127. I think he was one of the top scorers and played brilliant football and deserved his recall, and so did Dino, in fairness. And look, I think the way Brian O'Driscoll is going at the moment, he's had 3 fantastic games. He's bringing a different kind of an aspect to Cork's play, which they were missing, which was, they were short and they were running the ball hard and they were afraid to put the ball in on top of the D. And like when they turned it over the last night, there was 4 or 5 different occasions where Brian O'Driscoll was involved, and there was long, fast, accurate ball delivered into the forward, and a couple of times to Brian Haulie, John O'Rourke towards the end, and that mixes up the game, adds an extra notch of speed to the game, and it'll definitely improve Cork.
Just on the Cork inside line, Diarmuid, Brian Hurley's been in great form to the last couple of games. You've seen Stephen Sherlock come in the last 2 games, post big scores. With Chris Jones as well is doing quite well. We've had Conor Corbett in the first game. So that Cork inside line looks quite dangerous. And we still have Cahill or Mahoney to kind of factor in as well. So all of a sudden you've huge competition for places in that inside line. And that can only be good for this Cork team.
Definitely. But I suppose, it's been for years we know that the ability of the inside forwards is so much dependent on the speed of the ball coming in, and I think that's probably the difference that we've seen in these 3 games is the speed of transition from defence to attack. For the last number of years, Cork were very laborious, going sideways, whatever kind of without ever having intent to go forwards, but now they're constantly probing, and I think the likes of Powter, even at centre forward, is suddenly adding that pace that he can break a tackle and suddenly things open up. Or as Haulie mentioned there, we have the ability, we have players like Brian O'Driscoll or different guys now who can kick the ball and transition that way as well, so the ball is definitely going in much quicker, and you can see the rewards of that and the way the scores that Brian Hurley is getting, and a lot of them are kind of from that transition type ball, when it is moved quickly, when they turn over and an opposition attack when they move it quickly. So it's definitely a huge factor. I suppose the one thing you would say on those inside forwards is none of them are massively big men that a lot of teams do have at least 1 or 2 men inside there that can win their own ball, and obviously the likes of Brian Hayes would have been a huge addition if he had been available to us, but unfortunately he's gone to the hurlers. But definitely at the moment the inside forwards are going very well, and added to that, those couple of those couple of guys that you mentioned as well, that could be added to the panel would make a big difference as well.
Ollie, what are your thoughts on Sean Powter at centre forward? Like, he's such an important player for Cork wherever he plays, but he's been deployed at centre forward in the last couple of games. Do you think we're going to see him there for the rest of the year, or are we going to see him come back into the half-back line?
And I saw him there against Kerry, and I saw him there against Limerick. And look, he's been one of Cork's marquee players when Cork were going badly. Let's say himself and Ian Maguire around the middle, they were the best known two, if you know what I mean. So like he does draw attention, and he is man marked. And that day against Kerry, Tadhg Morley was centre back. No, Tadhg Morley didn't show huge interest, but we all saw Tadhg Morley sitting back on the top of the D all year last year, covering his full back line and letting the centre forward off. But Kerry must have felt that they wanted to mark Powter or had to mark Powter. And that big gap behind Tadhg Morley was there all day, and there was numerous goal chances and goals created out of that big space opening up. Against Limerick the last night, he wasn't, he wasn't in the eye as much as he was against Kerry. He was only intermittently in the game, but he still opens it because he has to be marked. The centre back is there. The centre back is going to have to push him, or else the midfielder is going to have to drop back, so the extra man is created. So like he's still your talisman. If he gets injured, it'll be a huge blow. Oppositions fear him, Kerry fear him. It's important that he stays fit all the way through the league.
I need to get your thoughts too on the Cork midfield pairing of Ian Maguire and Colin O'Callaghan. Colin's played 3 games. Ian Maguire set out the game against Limerick. He had a calf strain, so Cork didn't want to take any risks with him. It's just so noticeable that Cleary has gone with his preferred midfield pairing from the very start. He obviously wants Maguire and O'Callaghan in there. So have you been impressed by what you've seen from them, especially O'Callaghan? 2-4 against Kerry, 2-5 from the 3 games. So he's added shooting, added scoring to his repertoire.
And I suppose more positively on top of that, Maguire didn't play against Limerick, and you didn't look out of place still. Do you know what I mean? We were so dependent on him before. But Colm O'Callaghan definitely looks a far fitter player than he was last year. Grant, he's physically very powerful, but he looks like he's shed weight, and he's covering the ground far better than what he was covering it. And that was, the mark of that was against Kerry. He set his stall out with what he scored that night, but he was very aggressive and, very strong in the tackle and very strong at breaking the tackle. And the good thing about it as well, from the goalkeeper's point of view, it was Micheál Martin or Chris Kelly. When they went long, he was winning kickouts independently. And we didn't have that last year, or he wasn't doing that last year. So look, definitely a positive. It's early in the year. Again, we'd be hoping he'll stay fit and keep developing the way he's developing, but there are bigger tests ahead for both of those guys in the middle, like we know what Maguire can do. Maguire will run up and down the pitch all day. He needed a partner. We'll be hoping that Colm O'Callaghan will be that partner for a while, let's say.
So Diarmuid, Division 2 of the league throws in on Sunday, 1:30 p.m. Partly we've Cork at home to Meath. And just a quick look at the games after that. Cork are then away to Kildare, home to Dublin, home to Limerick, away to Clare, away to Louth, and at home to Derry. So it's almost fair to say that the 3 of the toughest games are coming up at the start: Meath, Kildare, and Dublin. But look at as a whole first, what would a good league campaign be for this Cork team?
I think a good, obviously out of 8 teams, I think if they got a 3rd place finish, it would be excellent, because you'll probably see Dublin will finish number 1. 2nd place will probably be Derry, you'd imagine, and then it could be a fight between Cork and Kildare maybe for 3rd place. And I think that would be, if they were able to put themselves in position. I think Derry's their last game, isn't it? So if they were able to put themselves in a position that they had something to fight for in the last day, then I think it would be a very, very successful league. So in terms of promotion, it's highly unlikely. I think Dublin will probably win virtually every game, you'd imagine. They might lose one maybe. And as I say, I think Derry look a very, very strong side, particularly what they did to Tyrone there last week as well, and building on last year. So I think a 3rd place finish would be massive progress, considering the quality of teams that are in that division.
Ollie, what do you want to see from Cork in the league?
Well, look, I'd have been saying, that if you won the McGrath Cup and finished mid-table in the 2nd division, you'd have been going well. But as I said earlier, I think Cork will beat Meath. If they could get a result against Kildare away, that's going to be a tough test. And you can imagine, if you were in position with 2 wins, having won the McGrath Cup, by the time the Dubs come to town, you're going to be generating a following at that stage, and there's going to be more momentum behind the team. So look, you just don't know, because you see Division 1 and Division 2 isn't much different. It's highly competitive, and on a given day, any one of those top 4 or 5 teams that Diarmuid named there, any one of them can take the other one. Do you know what I mean? Depending on whether they're how far advanced they are in their fitness levels and their training program and all the rest of it. And look, with Dublin, are they going to use the league to experiment and try new players, or are they going to have that backbone of their team there where they're setting their stall out to basically take the All-Ireland back off Kerry? You know, it depends what they bring to town, and it depends what way the early results go. Because if you got the 2 early results, you have the Clare and you have, I think, is it Louder there as well? Am I right?
Yeah, Louder there, Louder the second last game, yeah, away to Louth.
Yeah, and are Limerick still there?
Limerick, yeah, Cork are home to Limerick in the 4th game.
Yeah, so look, I suppose, it's easy to say, but they're kind of fallback games. You'll be happy if the first 2 or 3 went well, that the way Cork played in the McGrath Cup, they should be over those teams. And you'll be putting yourself in a savage position then come the last couple of games.
In the last couple of years, we've been stung by Cork football teams with reasons for optimism, and then all of a sudden they prove to be false dawns. But do you sense that there's a different feeling around this Cork team under John Cleary? Like, he's got in the management team that he wants. He's Kevin Walsh in there. He's got Rob Heffernan helping him out. He's been able to bring in players that he's wanted to bring in, like we mentioned there earlier, the likes of Brian O'Driscoll were redeemed, Tom Clancy, Meehan's back in, Daniel O'Mahony is there as well. So very much John Cleary has as much as is possible the squad that he wants. So should we allow ourselves to get a little bit excited? Tempered by the fact, again, it's just the McGrath Cup, but there does seem to be green shoots in January.
Yeah, I think you said a little bit excited. I wouldn't overly do it again, because it has to be tempered a little bit, because you mentioned it's the McGrath Cup. They're coming from a low base, and they're coming from years of these false dawns where they're up for a little bit but they go back 2 steps again, so it has to be massively tempered. But as you said, like, number one is they have most of the best players playing for them now. There's probably still 1 or 2 out there in the county that would probably add 1 or 2 extra options to Cork, but they have at least most of the best players playing now with them. They clearly look like they have a very, very good management and a set of players who are willing to play for that management. And they look like they're a team that work really, really hard and are committed. And that's not just hearing anything back or anything. That's the evidence that you see on the field, and that they're working hard for each other, and they look like they are committed, So, but I would be, very, very cautious, because, as I said, at the end of the day, you're probably in Munster just comparing yourself to Kerry, and Kerry are still light years ahead of us. They were very worthy All-Ireland champions last year. I would say, this year, to get close to them again, Kerry will probably have to have an off day, and Cork will have to keep improving and get closer. But any team doesn't suddenly, because of 2 or 3 good winter months of training or whatever, suddenly become title contenders or anything. So it has to be massively cautious optimism, I think, because any team that develops, it takes a couple of years, and it's not even going to be next year. It's probably the year after. They hopefully will get very close, challenging for Munster titles and maybe get into position of quarterfinals and semi-finals of All-Irelands and things like that.
Haulie, any areas or reasons that we should be concerned, this Cork team, or any areas that concern you about this Cork team and where they are right now?
Well, I'm only taking it from this time last year, and the amount of improvement that has come. The amount of improvement is huge, but we won't really know where these teams' weaknesses are until, as I said, we'll be into the 3rd game of the league, because they had it easy against Kerry. Obviously, Kerry had nothing done, had a whole pile of interest in the game. Clare and Limerick weren't playing as well as the Clare and Limerick that we saw last season. Cork look strong all over the field. There probably are a couple of positions up for grabs, and there will be a lot of competition for those positions. But look, at the moment, there's still work to be done. They're going to find out more about themselves when it comes to the Meath game and the Kildare game. But as Diarmuid says, there's cause for optimism. They look mentally in a very, very good place. Especially the last night there now, they went well ahead of Limerick, conceded a goal, but it didn't faze them. They went in at halftime, came out, got the first 5 or 6 points of the second half, Grand conceded a goal again, but then finished strong. So you'll be hoping that the winning and that improved mental fortitude, let's say, when the pressure really comes on, that's developing also, and that will, that will come to fruition against the better teams.
All right, but the final question to both of you: which Cork player are you most looking forward to watching in the upcoming Division 2 league? Diarmuid, you can go first.
Probably Sean Meehan again. I'm know he spent a lot of last year injured, you know, but like he, you know, everyone knows that he marked Clifford, I think, a couple of times. Did he keep him scoreless at least once, if not, and maybe it was at a point the other time or something like that. But he's a player that's incredibly exciting, and I think he's a quality player, you know, as a player that would get in absolutely any county or any county team around the country. I suppose the big question is, where do you play him from a Cork point of view? Will they be kind of preparing him for the full back line to mark Clifford, or would he be in his probably more natural position at centre back where he's able to maraud forward, you know? But very similar, I think, in ways, and maybe this is a bit premature to be comparing him to, but very similar to the way Canty used to play for Cork, where they weren't sure would they play Canty at midfield, a full back, marking, you know, the likes of Donaghy or Tommy Walsh or any of these, or would they play him at centre back where he was obviously outstanding as well. So I think that's probably maybe it'll be horses for courses depending on the games, you know, that they're playing, where they play Sean Meehan. But I think he's a very, very exciting player, young player, but bags of ability, and looks like to have the right temperament as well, you know. So he's definitely a player I look forward to seeing.
Same question to you, Haulie.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Conor Carver is going to do, because obviously he's been out injured. He was a fantastic underage player for Cork. He's a big, powerful unit now. Obviously, he's gymmed out a lot while he was out injured. Played well against Kerry. You know, this fella looked like he could be the next best thing before he got injured. And I'd be hoping that he gets lots of game time over the league, and that we can see where he can go, because he was a fantastic wing forward in that under-20 and minor team that back along the years. And there is a wing forward position there up for grabs, and he's a big, powerful unit, you know, great kicker, great score taker. And look, he's a new guy, and you know, we need more and the best of our underage talent coming through and making a mark at senior.
Brilliant stuff, lads. Hopefully the next time we're talking, Cork will be flying high in Division 2.